First of all, nice introduction. I'm saying the same things. I've even written them down. So my name is Kostas. I'm Greek. It's my first ISType, and I'm very happy to be here. Onur is a great guest, and Bartu, of course. And I'm going to try and share some insights from my field of work. So I'm a typeface designer, and I've been in this profession professionally as a typeface designer for around 10 years now, a little over 10 years. I come from a self-taught graphic designer's background, and like every self-respecting graphic designer, typography was always like a natural extension of the design that drew me in. And I played around with letters for quite some time, and eventually I realized that graphic design was a little bit too tiresome for me, in the sense that all this like pressure for short bursts of creativity was just like, the stress was too much to handle compared to when I started like making some letters, and it needed more time for ideas to develop, and that allowed me to feel more liberated. So, long story short, my life trajectory led me to pursue a master in typography at the University of Reading in 2015. That's me up there, younger. And this is a lovely bunch of people that were there with me. And we're all sitting next to the late Dr. Gerard Unger, which is a special person for everyone who's met him. And okay, it was a super intensive year, and simultaneously the hardest thing I've done in my life, because self-taught means I did not have a bachelor degree, and but at the same time the most amazing year of my life. And this year gave me a structured way to build upon this self-taught foundation that I had, and to deepen my understanding of the nuances of type. So in Reading, I met my two current business partners, Priya Ravichandran, who was doing her PhD degree at that time, having finished her master's the same year as Eben in 2011, and Mohammed Dakak. And Mo was studying in the same year as I. And together we established Foundry 5 in 2019. And these two guys, they are like amazing partners in this journey that we're like, that we're in as we're speaking. Because each one of them brings their own strengths and cultural insights into our work. And Priya has great expertise in Indic scripts, and most focus on Arabic type design. All of these things allow us to offer much more holistic solutions when we're delivering like multi-script typefaces. I'm also proud to be Priya's partner, and we have a little side project that recently turned 2. And that's another tough project. And Foundry 5 was born from a shared vision for typography that could bridge cultures and languages, and particularly for audiences where Latin-focused type would not resonate. Our world is predominantly full of Latin fonts, okay, and we wanted to cater for a global typographic audience, delivering fonts that work well across multiple scripts. So the diversity of scripts this diversity of script expertise that our collaboration brings, it includes Indics such as Devanagari and Tamil, Arabic, Cyrillic, Greek, and of course Latin. And it is really what defines us as Foundry 5. Because it's one thing to design like beautiful letters for one script, but it's another thing to come together and ensure that whatever you deliver, you're doing it with the best intention, to work in harmony across languages, with different reading habits, with different historical references, and of course with character structures. And this is how our website looks at the moment. This is when you hover over that menu that shows you the font. And it's a small library that we have because building a multi-script library is slow and tedious work. And more so when parenthood and some other life demands make us move at a slower pace. But the quality and integrity that we're trying to bring in our releases is essential to us. So we are currently working on expanding both our font families as well as their script support. But most importantly, we're also working on expanding our own understanding of how best to serve global typography. Our work also includes cases where we are asked to finish a concept and or expand the script support. And this is an example, a recent example, that's why I'm showing it. It's, our role was Beetroot design agency, multi-awarded design agency from Greece came to us and asked us to just like, they had this idea for the identity of the Athens Epidaurus Festival, so they said, okay, here it is, can we make it a finished typeface? So with this limited set, we expanded it, we made it we added Greek, and we made a finished font for them. And other times, we are tasked with designing a full custom font, such as this one, and this is a joke, and this one. And there are other things that I could show, but I mean, I'm trying to make the point that unfortunately, in our field of work, we're plagued by this NDA obsession that agencies have, where you're asked to do something and then you can never show it because I'm not even sure what the reasons are. But anyway, custom projects though allow us to grow our own understanding of how fonts affect brand identity. Okay. So, as typographers and type designers, our world revolves around a few repetitive concepts. The outline tension, the rhythm, the patterns and pattern recognition. And of course, typographic texture, which is why we're here today. What is typographic texture though? And there are a few definitions. I thought that by this time, someone would have given a definition because but thankfully not. So I can like go ahead and say, and quote Herit Nordzai, where he simply puts it as the visual impression made by the interaction of individual letter shapes and the space around them. The impression is a mix of structure and intuition that goes beyond just the letter shape. Texture is influenced by the letters, the spaces inside them, around them, the spaces between the lines, the rhythm of the parts of the letters, as well as the rhythm of all the elements coming together, the balance between black and white, and the feel of the overall impression, whether on a page or a screen. It is what we see, but it's also how we feel when we see a text block. So just like fabric, text fonts weave a cohesive visual pattern. The letters are the threads, and each thread's position and shape impacts the final feel of the page, affecting the text's emotional undertone. And you're probably all obsessed about type, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But at some point, when you were normal human beings, you possibly remember reading a book and not noticing the typeface at all, just like reading the book. And that's because usually good text typefaces often go unnoticed. Okay, that's their job. It takes effort to achieve a seamlessness and a good texture in text typefaces and make reading comfortable. And one of the key attributes that affects the overall impression of continuous text is color. Sorry. A text block forms a visual color on the page, with regularity and density creating different textural effects. Squinting at a page to gauge the color is a common technique for evaluating how balanced the block of text is and ensuring it doesn't strain the eyes. In bibliography, it has repeatedly been either explicitly stated or implicitly implied that a good color can improve readability, the measurement of how easy a piece of text is to read. If I were to ask you to compare these two blocks of text, which one would you find more comfortable to read? Okay, someone said on the right. I'm interested in that. Well, I think that most of you would possibly say the one on the left. And comparing the two blocks, I mean, I'm not sure about because of the display, but this one is supposed to be smoother, you know. And the reason why this is smoother and more consistent in color is because I messed around with the quality of the threads on the right one, okay? So I've introduced inconsistencies in the stems, and you know that title is like too big, and the letters are imbalanced, and all of these things affect the texture, okay? And rhythm, consistency, visual balance, and harmony, they're all qualitative attributes of the typographic texture. And when we read, we instinctively favor harmony, where each letter contributes to a smooth, even visual rhythm. Consistency in visual factors, including weight, spacing, which influences infographic color, help achieve an unnoticeable feeling and enhances the reader's ability to process information comfortably. If we look at this example, it's from Victoria Skolimovska's Skate Fashion zine. At first glance, we can say that the type is also unnoticeable. I'm honestly not sure if it's like how it's looking on the big screen. Because anyway, I hope it looks good. But however, she's using a monospaced font with full justification, which intentionally disrupts the uniformity, at least the uniformity that is expected from the typesetting. This adds a subtle texture that reflects the rough, unpolished nature of street culture. And this texture adds authenticity and meaning to this specific design. Hypnosis typeface by fellow Thessalonician Yorgos Triantafylakos is another interesting example because it's a well-designed Latin and Greek typeface with an even color that is intentionally idiosyncratic. It features these lovely dancing stems that create a moving rhythm that makes readers pause. It adds a subtle tension to the reading experience, which is perfect for specific contexts that call for a louder presence, regardless of the script, of course. Hypnosis is there to be noticed. Now, talking of scripts, each script carries its own unique texture and rhythm. And multi-script typeface design usually tries to find the hot spot, where the design of its script is true to its history, while at the same time, the whole range of scripts works as a finely tuned system. When I was in Reading, it took me hours and hours. I spent hours now trying to figure out how to visually balance these 4 scripts. The idea being to even the color as much as possible. However, even if some scripts can achieve a harmonious color, due to the intricacies of its script, it is impossible to match the texture. Latin script developed with an emphasis on the stems, giving it its fence-like appearance. Cyrillic script with the majority of the lowercase letters squeezed within the X height, it is even fancier and blockier. Not the Bulgarian, but the Russian Cyrillic, let's say. Greek's evolution from manuscript to typography allowed it to maintain its circular, loopy look. And of course, Arabic's cursive texture and inherent rhythm brings an almost fluid and certainly rich visual quality. Now, outside the realm of type design and in the realm of typography, there are cases where you want 2 scripts or even 2 different languages set in the same script to look different. In this example, it was my intention to use the texture of the blocks to show dominance of the original poem by Edgar Allan Poe by setting it in Roman on the left side and setting the translation on the right side in italics. So additionally also, there are obviously cases where we use textural changes to intentionally draw the reader's attention. In these examples, these are from our Peridot specimen. Emphasis through bolder weights or italics introduces a break in the texture that naturally guides the reader's eye. And we all use these changes in texture to emphasize and highlight, demonstrating how texture plays a role in hierarchy. Type this way becomes noticeable, and obviously this is not exclusive to Latin, as you can see in the Devanagari example. In other cases, you may want to make 2 or more scripts intentionally stand out. Titus Nemeth has a great talk called Harmonized Type Design Revisited from Grandson 2015. And it's on YouTube, and I suggest you find it and watch it. It's very interesting. And one of the examples that he shows is this intentionally typeset language teaching booklet from Cambridge University Press, where the Arabic type stands out from the Latin to help the English Arabic learning beginner. And all this time I've intentionally spoken about text fonts because in my mind making text typefaces is like making a pair of sneakers. And this is an analogy with shoes again, following Eben's analogy. Where is Eben? So sneakers, they are designed to take me places. They are there for long distances. They need to be comfortable, they need to be sturdy, and they need to be reliable. And if text typefaces are sneakers, display typefaces are more something like this, like a pair of Christian Louboutin stilettos. They are attention grabbing, they're there to be noticed, they want to go to the party. So when I'm thinking of texture in display sizes, the focus shifts from the overall impression of words to the actual form of the letter. Display fonts, they bring distinctive shapes and bold outlines, and bold doesn't necessarily mean bold in weight. And they create emotional reactions that wouldn't be possible in text fonts, where subtlety is usually the key. The range of textures is limitless. It can be sticky, like in Mushy by Louis McGuffin. This 4-weight family is aptly named after gradations of dairy products: cheese, butter, yogurt, and cream. It can be gritty, like this unnamed design by Daytona Mess, aka Anne Dauphine Bourillon, aka Ando. Design that's rough to touch. It's conveying a feeling of rawness or decay or perhaps anger. It can be wavy, like this super design Macabre by Dave Coleman, with its undulated forms. It creates patterns that convey a feeling of ghoulishness, you know, like appropriate for Halloween occasions. Or it can be woven, like Amifer Folio by Typeland. This was published in 2023 to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the publication of the first folio, the first collected edition of William Shakespeare plays. And it speaks of warmth and romance, in my eyes at least, okay. And it doesn't stop in Latin, of course. If we look at this monospaced font, it's Nostra Stream, the Greek, by Lucas de Croix. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm sorry, Lucas. And it has a fibrous texture, okay. The way he describes it, it has a ribbony effect inspired by snakes in jars. There's a glossy texture in Dragon Hangul by Minju Ham. It's bold, 3-dimensional form with the simple sign effect, makes it playful and creates a feeling of joy. Or it can be chiseled, like Chiki Devanagari and Gurmukhi by Kimia Gandhi. With the angular sculpted appearance, it conveys a feeling of permanence, craftsmanship, strength. Or it can be liquid, like Hud Hud by Maha Akl. This is a great Arabic design that blends Maghribi letter forms with Nazca influences. And this typeface has a certain warmth and playfulness. So far I tried to display this duality of typographic texture, okay, in text sizes and display. And that's what the subtitle of my talk refers to, the dance of type across sizes. But what about releasing the tension? A few months ago, I was enjoying some family holidays when I received a call from Onur. And I had just posted something, posted some italics, I think, of Canicule on Instagram. And he called me and he said, I want you to come and do this talk for me because I want you to explain to me how you can do like super boring text faces and then make something as expressive as this. And my original response was, I have no clue. And reflecting though upon it, I mean, it kind of dawned on me that I know, but what's happening inside me at least, okay? And it is true that most of my fonts that are intended for continuous text, they're quite the vanilla type. Whether it's a low contrast or a high contrast serif or sans serif, I feel completely bound by certain restrictions. That the restrictions are there because of my studies, because of my personal experiences, and my experience as a type designer, and of course they're imposed by the rules of optics. And I'm mostly following rules. You know, my focus is usually on readability, legibility. I want the letters to come together into words, the words to come together into harmonious blocks of text. And the forms are usually void of unnecessary embellishments and tamed in character. I want the font to be a vessel for the content. At least that's how I see it in my head. But when I'm designing display types, then it releases my tension. So it's liberating. It is like a deep exhale. And I feel more like a kid entering a playground. And this is how AI visualizes my playground, my display type playground. And I use this time in this playground to relax. And it's here in this playground that I found Canicule in the spring of 2023. And Canicule is a display serif with an organic, slightly squarish character. Version 0.1 was released in the summer of 2023 on Future Fonts. And for those of you who don't know, Future Fonts is a platform for typefaces in progress, where people like test ideas, and it's a very nice concept. And the first release only had Roman styles, and it covered 9 weights from thin to black. And the thin weights, they featured long, fine serifs that they became more glyphic as the weight increased. And a year later, I went back to it and I released 0.2, which introduced an expressive italic counterpart to the family. And working on this italic allowed me to exaggerate the self-confidence of certain letter forms, such as that Y that demands a lot of attention, and a few other characters that carry unique personalities. And designing the Greek for an existing Latin typeface always has a set of challenges. You have to decide the ductus to follow for its letter, and because there's a variety of it. And most importantly, you have to choose the stress in the case of a high contrast Latin serif equivalent. So Greek offers several historical models. That's like 5 out of like thousands. And each one has different letter forms, and each one has different stress patterns. And in the end, I chose to follow a similar stress to the Latin because it felt more appropriate for a contemporary look that I wanted Canicule to have. My original intention was to add the Cyrillic as well at this stage, but unfortunately, time was pressing me a lot. And Greek additionally has some other challenges to overcome, with letters that feature 3 vertical stems, like the phi and the psi, which you can see here. And additionally, you have to find the way to balance the cursiveness of the Latin with certain cursive Greek letter forms, such as the theta and the kappa. But regardless, it's always fun. The fun part begins when you start going in the heavier weights. Somehow, for me at least, it's just like you get to express yourself a lot more. So Canicule 0.3 with the Greek update was released a couple of weeks ago. And I feel that the vividness and flow of both scripts are nicely balanced. And I don't know if anyone has any objections. We can have a drink later and discuss this. OI has a different story. It started in 2015, when Gerard came and gave us an assignment in Reading. And the exercise he gave was design a few characters of two typefaces that reflect our perception of private and public. This is the first sketch I did for the public typeface, and I suck at sketching. It's just like, it was embarrassing. But Gerard had his moment, which was amazing. And he was always very warm in the way he gave feedback to anything we were doing. It's amazing. Anyway, it was not my intention to follow any model. I was just looking at something that felt loud enough in my head. It was an intuitive sketch. I just decided that the public design had to shout out as loud as possible. I imagine it as this ultra-fat, uppercase-only typeface with letters occupying as much space as possible. The kind of type that you would use to set this, for example. And it was not until 2017 when I returned to it, because circumstances led me to seek consolation in OI. I was trying to relieve my mind of other things. And at this point, I realized that deep down in its roots, it is echoing a Clarendon, like Clarendon from Fan Street Foundry. And so I worked on it, and I finished the Latin, I finished the Greek, and published it for free. I was like, okay, that's a playground project. It was nice here, have it, the world, have it. A few years later, with the financial support of Google, I went back to it and added Cyrillic. And shortly after, I've added Tamil with Priya's hand-holding and consulting. And at that point, OI became a Google font, available on Google Fonts. Recently, it received another update where I've added support for sub-Saharan African languages and delightful Arabic, which I made the proof of concept and more so its completion. I love this design. It's coming out in the next, I don't know, month or so, hopefully. I'm super excited for the Arabic. And one of the great exercises that I learned in Reading is that display sizes can always inform the text sizes. Like when you feel stuck trying to figure out what you want from a text font that you're working on, you just like pump up the volume, search for something, search for the display type there, and then you tone it back down again, and what is left is usually the gist, what the text wants to be. And so now I already have the pumped up version, and recently, I don't know, like 6 months ago or even longer, I kind of like played around to see what is the Clarendon that lies in its root. This is kind of like still a very early sketch, so we never know what's going to happen with this. Finally, I want to show you Evert. Evert was released in February, I think, this year, and this typeface began its journey in 2017. And I felt quite moved by the mechanical look and feel of Grotesque #1 by Miller and Richard, which you see on the left side, obviously. And I used it as a loose inspiration to make something like a contemporary grotesque. It's a very free interpretation of the generic idea. I had to drop it and put it aside for large stretches of time, puzzled mostly by my ideas of the structure of the family, because I couldn't decide what I wanted it to be, Finally, I decided to just like add optical weights, and I'm going back to Eben's talk here, And this somehow allowed me, first of all, I decided to add the slanted italics and intentionally work at with 12 masters at the same time. And the reason why I did that is because jumping from the text sizes to the display sizes simultaneously allowed me to constantly keep my relaxed approach on how I was looking at the outlines and not lose interest, you know, because when you're designing such breadth and depth at the same time, it's becoming too much sometimes. And the two extremes of the optical size axis aren't drastically different in form. The extreme weights of the display cut are lighter and heavier consecutively, and spacing is obviously a lot tighter, as Eben explained. And the weight as the weight increases, the horizontal stress becomes a little bit more obvious in the heavier weights and in the display sizes as well. So I think that the small details in the display, they make it a little bit, give it a little bit more character. Evert supports Latin and Greek, and Cyrillic are on the way. And you can see yet again the slight difference in the texture of the two scripts on the right side. Regardless still of the script, this Evert shows slight horizontality. It weaves the mechanical rhythm that I intended in the small sizes. And you know, details like the ink traps and tapering terminals, which serve functional purposes in the textiles, they become purely decorative in the display sizes. And this slight difference makes Evert flexible across different contexts. And it managed to maintain a unique character, let's say. The textiles are there to be read, the display is sharper and conveys an impactful confidence in the message it's trying to carry. And there's a middle cut that sits somewhere in between the two that is like, okay, it sits well for pulled quotes or subheads. And Evert also has a sibling with the working name of Evert implicit, which is the one on the right side, your right side. And it features closed counters and softer terminals, and it has an even more smoother, unobtrusive, it creates an even more smoother, unobtrusive reading experience. And this may see the light in 2025. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, wrapping it up, this talk has been a journey through the typographic texture, both as the term that underlines our lives as type designers and typographers, but as well as my personal relationship with it. And since we're talking about feelings, there may always be a gap between what the designer intends, either the typeface designer or the typographer or the graphic designer, and what the recipient perceives. And so perhaps removing the actual text may make a difference in that last statement. So typographic texture is both a limitation and a goal for the type designer, a tool for the typographer, and a spark for the perception of the reader. And sometimes all of these things align in a nice way, and type shines the way it's supposed to. That's all. Thank you.